Hi, welcome to the Cultural Barriers podcast by Changing Suits. My name's Belle.
And my name's Tej.
On this week's episode, we'll be discussing that one phrase that we learnt from the last set of podcasts and how important it is for the South Asian community. What will people say? So, Taj, what did we learn? Why was that such an important phrase last time round?
Was the phrase normal? For giving us it doesn't give us a clue. What was the phrase that we were using? Normal.
No, you're not listening to what I'm saying. What will people say?
Sorry.
Okay, so that is pretty much how this podcast goes. I talk, Tej pretends she listens, and she's like, okay, talks about something totally different.
To be honest, I've started doing that.
Totally an age thing. That's something that's going to come up a lot, age. But anyway.
I don't think it's to do with age. It's to do with I can't be asked to listen to people.
Fair enough. Okay, so what will people say? Why was that an important phrase for us last time round?
Every episode that we were doing, we always spoke about what we were worried about, what the community would say. And even when we had guests coming on, we were worried. Well, they were using the phrase of, I didn't do this, I didn't do that because I was worried about what the community would say. And to be honest, it's something that I speak about on a daily, I can't think of the other word.
Basis.
Daily
Menopause. We're talking about pre-menopause. Anyway, there's so much we talk about in the podcast. Go on, carry on.
daily basis, even the events and the workshops we do, when we sit there and we're just generally having a chat, it's like, oh, I didn't do this when I grew up because I was worried about what the community would say. I can't think of an example. I was going to say flash, but I won't do that anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you should.
So you're always, or sometimes you do things because you're worried about, hey, you want to impress the community as well. Status. I'm going to stop using these because I was using these a lot in the last episode. You're worried about status and you want to look good in the community.
But then that was an important thing before, right? What would the community say?
Still now, to be honest. I was speaking to my husband the one odd time because we don't speak deeply that much because we can't be bothered. But the other day I was saying to him, I brought you up in this area. Your status is high because of me. Yes, I was loving myself. And he's like, whatever. So, but again, it was a silly, jokey conversation. But the whole thing was your status is up in the community and the community are recognizing you. Who cares? Do we care? Yes, we do, because I said that. So even jokingly, we're worried about what the community will say.
Yeah, but the thing is, the fact that we're talking about certain bits, about our own personal lives through the podcast, is there a sort of sense that we care less, though, what people think? Because we do talk about topics that perhaps people wouldn't have explored. Whereas, and the community generally, you look at social media, people are generally talking about things that they weren't talking about before. You'll see posts about, I don't know, menopause.
I do agree. But then is it a bit of what is it, paradox or something? We're not worried about what the community say. So we're doing against the community. So that community element is still there. So you're going against what the community would want. So, then in essence, are we worried still about what the community would say? One thing I want to say is what's affected me was when we started our domestic abuse service, I have seen that there's been quite a lot of people, our domestic abuse service that we've started off in Swindon. I've seen a lot of South Asian people come up to me, have an opinion, whether it's been positive or negative. And through this, I have seen some people have distanced themselves away from me.
Oh, really?
Friendship we used to have, or used to speak to each other or be around each other a lot, go around each other's houses. They've grown or ungrown or distance. Those aren't the right words, but distance themselves because now it's seen an Asian woman, I was going to say young Asian woman, I should stop saying that, is now being too vocal.
Oh, so this is the first time we've spoken about this. Oh, I don't know what's going to come out of this topic. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What are we talking about, Tom Jacob?
Never name names.
But then how do you mean? Are you sure it's about the domestic abuse service as well? Like, how do you know it is?
It's not only about the domestic abuse service, it's about other things that I've been very vocal about. Now I think it's an age thing as well, and almost like a growth thing where I'm not going to contradict myself, not too worried about what the community would say because I'm at a point where I'm old now. I'm ready to swear kind of thing and not care what people say.
But let's go back. How do you know it's about the fact that you're being more vocal? Maybe you've grown apart.
No, it's basically there was an event and you had to put in secret questions in. And I was going to put in a particular question, questioning the way that the event was run.
Oh, yeah.
And this event was run by men, and this particular family didn't like the fact that I was bringing up and questioning the men and holding them to account. And from there, that's where the distancing started from.
Yeah, but then this then goes on to another topic of, if we talk about something, then it becomes more, that topic becomes more under the microscope, for example. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Obviously, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is very personal. You know, the events that we have, people open up very much about their own personal lives, what's going on in their family homes, for example. And then you realize that actually, I'm not the only one going through that. And there's another person going through that. And that's something that we've sort of learned as we've gone along as well, right? And this is where it's a case of, is awareness good? Because if you're highlighting it and then your people are worried about it, they stop talking. And it's not just the generation above us that are doing it, it's actually our generation as well, because I do know what you're talking about. And it's not just men, and it's not just men that do it, it's also women that are part of this as well. So where are we on that? Is it good to raise awareness about certain topics or not?
Well, first of all, it depends what the topic is. And second of all, I think we do a lot of brushing under the carpet. So we just, this has happened. Oh, well, let's brush it under the carpet. And I think
also, see, we're very different on that topic, right? Because I think you agree, like I tend to be like, okay, it is what it is sort of thing and whatever, right? And then I forget about it, or yeah, I feel like I forget about it.
There, you forgot what to say.
Whereas you like exploring that topic a bit more.
But that's to do with our personalities. I'm more analytical and I like to...
I'll give you an example. We were talking about getting counselling, for example, right? Just generally. And one of the topics, I think I was talking to my friend about it as well. And it was a case of, oh, like, what would you talk about, right? And I'm like, well, I don't think I've been through enough to go through anything from our past. I know you don't agree, but then it would be interesting to explore things in the future that you know are going to happen. Like, I'm not like, we know that people are going to pass away, and that's something that I am worried about. Like the grieving process, that is something like I am worried. So then that's something I explore. Whereas you've got the opposite, which I get. I don't know. But then is that, going back to the topic, what will people say? Like, is it important to explore topics that have already happened?
All right, let's think of just a really simple example. When we get dressed and we go out, for example, if we're going to an Indian function, we get dressed up and you want to look a certain way. For example, I was talking to my mother-in-law about a particular wedding that's coming up. And she was like, she doesn't usually say this, which I found really funny that she did say this. She goes, you better get some suits. Not that my suits aren't nice, but everyone's going to dress up and it's going to be like a fashion show. And I was like, yeah, I agree. So then we are worried about what the community will say, because you're like, I'm going to be judged if I wear a suit that isn't in fashion. Whereas you will dig out the oldest suit in the world, wear it and not care. And we as a family would be like, oh my God, oh, why did you wear that?
Yeah, I've had that. I've totally had that.
So then again, it's to do with status and being the in thing. The status would be that you've got enough money to go out and buy these new fashion clothes and be in the trend.
Is that what it's about? Did not get that.
Trend. And you're with it and you want to look right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
See, that's because you don't think about the little things like that, because you're always looking for the next. You're always looking in the future. But this is how our organization is the way it is. You always look in the future and then you don't look at where you are now and in the past. Whereas I look at now and keep analyzing the past. So
let's bring it back.
Work together.
Okay, let's bring it back. So the topic is, what will people say? Right? I had a conversation. We were talking about an event we did, I think it was last year or whatever. We had 2 events on the same day. I keep mentioning menopause. We do talk about more things than menopause, but it was about that. And one thing she said was, why do you have to talk about it? Like, it is what it is. But I remember when like Mum and Marcy were going through it, they were having hot flushes. They were, they couldn't remember things and things like that. And I remember looking back that they went through that, but they never spoke about it was the change, essentially, right? It was, so is it important that we know about it versus not knowing about it? And from that conversation, I was like, why would you not want to talk about that? That's pretty, like, we're quite open anyway. Like, when I can't remember nothing, like, I don't really care if I can't remember. But it is a case of, one thing that was said in a previous podcast with a guest was, well, actually, men need to know about it, because then it's a sort of stage where they'll realize a lot of things that are going on in your own life is because of that as well. And if they know that, then you're sort of on the same page.
First of all, I'm going to start off with, because we do have listeners that don't know Punjabi. So mum, everyone knows what mum is, I heard. So Marcy is sister's mum. And they did go through a lot of menopause, and my mum,
They went through a lot of menopause.
a lot, but I shouldn't use that because, to be honest, I do that a lot as well now. Listen to this, listen to that. It's what your kids force you to become, a moany person. But again, I think awareness is so important. And at that time when they were going through the menopause or any life sort of changing things, there was not that awareness there. So you just had to carry on and maybe think that you were crazy.
Well,
And
that was, yeah.
yeah. Actually, I went to the GP and I spoke to it and I said, I think I got perimenopause. I've got bad memory. I think it was itchy skin or something at the time. It was a list of things. And she goes, perimenopause is just commercialized, whatever. It's not a real thing.
Let's not go into the specific topic because we're talking about that quite a lot. Yeah, go on.
But the thing was, then I thought, no, there's a reason why I'm saying this. Then I thought, okay, I'm just crazy.
Yeah, fair.
It's about awareness, about understanding why you're going through certain things in life. For example, when you're younger, your hormones are everywhere and you want to be in a relationship with someone because you fancy that person or you that person, and your parents might stop you because they're worried about what the community will say if you're seen around hanging around with boys or talking to boys. We did mention this in our last podcast, that this is a topic that we're still worried about, is I'm going to say daughters, but in our family, it was our daughters and our son. So our brother got treated like a daughter as well.
That's the crap that everyone says when they're trying to say that everyone was equal. Right? It's like,
no, I don't think that's true.
Like when you get married and you're like, my daughter is the same as my daughter. No, they're not.
No,
they're not.
I don't agree. I remember my brother went out for late in the evening and he came back late and our dad was like, if you ever do that again, I'm going to kick you out of the house. So he did actually say that. Why? How do you remember it?
I remember it because I was there. I don't think you were there.
No, I was there.
You weren't there. No, Dad went on about it before. He went on and on and on about it. That's actually what happened. After it was done, it was done.
No, he actually said to me, because my mum explained it, he said,
were you there?
Said, my mum told us.
But that I was there.
But anyway, maybe you weren't there for that conversation where he said, I'm going to kick you out of the house if you go out again like that late at night. See, this is where it's funny. We're still in the same household, but yet we see things differently. But anyway, let's go back to what we were talking about. The topic of having relationships and worrying about what people will say in the community is that keeping up with the Joneses and making sure that everything looks pretty on the outside and whatever can be going on in the inside.
So for our generation, obviously that is something we're thinking about for our kids, and it's way gone because we're way past that point.
Are we breaking the cycle? That's the question.
Let's talk about another topic that's important for our generation, I feel, more than even that one, to be fair.
What, 6, 7?
No, I was going to say divorce.
Yes, it's like the in thing.
Yeah, but because it's the in thing, our older sister got divorced before it was fashionable, right? And it was tough. I remember that quite clearly. If anything, if you want to touch on trauma, bloody hell, that was trauma, right? But now, like I said, it's fashionable to be divorced.
I think we're wrong to say that. Yeah, no, they do have parties, but that's, again, when we're talking about this, we have to make sure that we don't do the blanket approach, because some people, when they want to get remarried or if they're going out in an event, they are ostracized or like, oh my God, you got divorced. So that still happens in the community. It does.
Where? Which events are you going to where that happens?
Just generally, because I am more out in the community than you are. Some people, for example, I know a couple of people actually that have moved to this country, had to get divorced for whatever reason and don't want to go back to their country because they're worried about what will be said from their families. But this does still go.
Hold on. So you've specifically said you're talking about people that have come from abroad. Where have they come from abroad from? Eastern countries.
Yeah,
Eastern countries. Okay, right. What about our generation? Because again, we're focused. The podcast is very much focused on people that are born here.
No, but it still happens here as well. It happens. People are worried about what others will say, and sometimes people don't.
To a lesser extent, though.
But people don't leave their partners because they're worried about, okay, what will the community say if I divorce this person? It does still.
No,
you're talking as if it's completely finished and everyone was okay with it. It's not, or it happens a lot because I think people are more now, okay, I need to, I need to have my own life and I need to live my life. So, okay, I will agree with you there. I think it's wrong to say it's fashionable because I think it's a very hard decision to make to leave
Yeah,
someone.
no, fair. All right, fair
And
point. Yeah.
also, the reason why certain people aren't leaving is because they're worried about what the community will say. And if we were looking in the Western ways and analyzing relationships, I think there will be loads of breakups. Because as a community, an Eastern community, we put up with quite a lot of shit compared to others, I would say.
Yeah,
And
but
we are told it is normal to let, for example, you have to always cook for your husband, you have to clean the floor. No, not literally, but basically be his slave. It's okay. That
see,
is still
I'm not saying that's not done. I do cook more than Suk does, but he does cook. Not that much. I mean, he has to make something fancy, and then we'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Whereas I have to make the same stuff and no one
yeah,
cares.
but it's on the odd occasion.
No, no, I agree with that. But one of the issues, no, I do agree with what you're saying there. There was, let's lighten this
Oh,
up.
first,
No, no, I
yes.
do. Not completely, because I think you're going too much that way and I'm going too much that way, to be fair.
Times have changed. People are splitting up more. I think if we were going to do some stats or something like that, there's probably more divorces than there have ever been.
Okay, hold on, right? On this topic itself, and then we'll move away from it. Do you think it's because of they're scared of what people will say? That's the reason they're staying, or the impact on their family?
A bit of both. I can't say it's one or the either. I think it's both. I think the pressure of, I think if it was easier and the community weren't there to say, no, carry on, carry on, carry on, I think there would be more.
You think that we're too easy, not only divorce, but other topics, to let things go, including relationships, compared to before because we're less worried about what people will say? Because I feel like sometimes the community pressure isn't a negative thing either. Because
I'm
then
not
what?
saying it's a
Hold
negative
on,
thing.
hold on, hold on. The reason I'm saying that is we have to act and treat people a certain way because otherwise you will get that backlash, right? But sometimes I feel like having that community pressure of, well, actually, you should be going to an event where you know no one, but it's going because there's a family wedding. It keeps the family together. And that's very much an Eastern way, because then if the daughter-in-law doesn't go, what will people say? That she didn't turn up, right? And you're right, that does still happen. I had it just the other week. But is there anything wrong with that? Because if we went the other way and we're like, we don't really care what people say, and I've seen this as well, we're moving away from that community feel because we don't care what people say. If I go to that event, I don't care. I'm the daughter-in-law, so I won't go. I don't care. But then we're moving away and saying, actually, I don't want to be involved in that part of the community. Then you're breaking families apart.
I think there's quite a lot to dissect there. First of all, in our parents' generation, there was a different way of living. A majority of the time, the woman was at the home, bringing up the kids, doing the cooking, whatever, the home stuff, and the man was out there. And I'm not saying that for everyone because this can never always be everyone thing. And the man was out there
Hmm.
bringing in the food. So the woman was financially dependent on the man. Things
Yeah,
have changed.
100%.
Women now are working and women are expected to still do what our mother's done, still go and get that job and be earning a good wage. And the men, have they evolved? That is the question.
Have they evolved? I think slightly, but not to the same extent as women have.
Exactly. And I think that's what's causing these fractures in our community because before it was women were pressed or oppressed and made to financially depend. Oh my God, I'm liking today's podcast. You're agreeing. You had to depend on your partner to bring in the money. If you left him, where were you financially? Then the next thing is we are having this generation, our generation, when we're questioning, should we always be doing what the in-laws want us to do? As in, should we always be going to family gatherings, even though no one is speaking to us and we got treated like crap, basically? Should we still carry on going? And I'm hearing this a lot
Oh,
in the
really?
community because I do speak to the community a lot. And we're having this where women, before it was, no, I'm going to go, I have to go, I have to go to everything, even if I'm ignored, even if I'm not respected, I have to go because we have to stay in the community. But things are now shifting where we as
Yeah.
women are questioning, do I need to put up with this crap anymore? And I don't think that's a wrong thing to be questioning,
Yes.
because we don't need to be putting up with rubbish anymore. In our parents' generation, it was a different world. Now we are, well, I can't use the word again, evolved, we're changed. And there's nothing wrong with change.
Yeah. I mean, I do
We
agree with what
can't,
you're
we
saying.
can't keep sticking to the Eastern old traditional ways just because we want to keep tradition going.
I agree. I've been through that exact same situation, and I feel like I have evolved. Let's use that word. I do agree, and I am happier with that. I do agree with what you're saying. You know, if people are going to treat you like crap, why bother being there? Like, we've only got a certain amount of energy, so we should be putting it in places that make us happy. The other part is, though, that communities are breaking up because of that. Now, I was talking to one of my
You
friends
can't
actually.
just stick to a
Hold on.
community.
Hold on. I did a podcast with Dad, which we are going to put out, and there was something that he said in there, and it's something that always sort of comes into my head. Of look, communities are breaking up, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we're trying to cling on to something that isn't there. And one thing that I have found is actually, why are we clinging onto something? We are a different generation. We are a different culture to what our parents were, and they've evolved as well. So this whole thing of trying to keep families and communities together is very much breaking apart. That is something quite clear in our community. But rather than trying to fight it, this is something that I've had conversations with myself, because I do that, of why am I trying to fight it? Because before, I've got it in my own family where you're like, no, you should need to keep together your family. Duh. Well, actually, if I'm treated like crap, then why am I trying to push for people to stay together? Let's just go with the change. It's people that is mindsets. This is for myself, by the way, and I thought it was a useful thing where we do just need to maybe go with the change. And if it is communities are breaking apart, communities are breaking apart. But one thing that I am seeing very much is there's different social problems now occurring, and that's something we'll explore later on. Things that weren't happening before are happening, and again, for women, that puts us into a different social cultural issues that we need to explore as well. But we'll do that on another one. Going back to the question, I know you're about to say something. What will people say? Now, I think from our own part of, we are growing. I'm going to keep on bringing up the fact that hitting 40 has been a big milestone for me personally, because I'm like, oh my God, I've got my time. I keep saying it. But it is a case of, well, where do I need to invest my energy? And I like talking to people. I have no problem talking to people. And hold on, what's wrong? You look like you're.
Do you like talking to people?
No, when I'm with people, I am quite friendly, I think. I'm
Now
quite
you got
sociable. I like having a laugh, and I like talking to the older generation as well. Like, I like old people, but then we were brought up with our Bibi and Baba, so I don't mind talking to the older generation. And I like, if I'm going to an event, I hate going to the event in the first place, but when I'm there, I am gonna enjoy myself, right? And it's not more what will people say, but I think just for me to have a good time, why sit there? I was in a situation once where I went to someone's program, and I was having a bit of a tiff with someone, still having that tiff. And I just sat there quietly and got out of the way. And it was a horrible event. Like, it made me feel like crap. And then I'm like, well, actually go there, have a good time, regardless of whatever. And I think surely that reflects good, because then turning around, going back to that question of what will people say, surely they'll say, well, actually, she spoke to everyone, she's quite nice. Da, da, da. That's a positive thing, right?
I want to just touch on what you were saying about how communities are changing.
Hmm.
I'm now meeting a lot of people that are isolating themselves from the community because they don't want to be known to be part of that community,
Yeah.
because they're worried about the gossip that happens in the community. I'm going to now talk about both the sides, the gossipy side and the person that gets left out from the community. They
Yeah.
don't want to be part of that community because they might be the person that's being gossip. So they leave and they just live this isolated life from outside. So isolated as in they don't mix with the community, but they will mix with people outside the community.
Hmm.
Is that a bad thing? To leave your community and then mix with people outside the community? Just
I
that
think,
is the whole life outside the community.
I mean, I was thinking about this yesterday about someone that we know quite well, and they did what they were supposed to do. They were very sociable with their in-laws, whatever. Unfortunately, they went through a divorce, and the impact of that was someone turned around and said, "You really let my parents down by leaving." And it was like, hold on, despite everything that that person went through and still put a smile on their face, that's the sort of response that they got from someone that was slightly younger than us, whose own family were not sticking to the traditional norms, right? And that is a bit of a shame. And that's where the isolation of, well, what was the point in trying to build those relationships in the first place? Because despite them at that point knowing that they were a good person, they've just turned around and slapped him in the face, unfortunately.
I think you can never please everyone. And one thing I think that I've learned on my journey of life is that you can never change people that don't want to change. You can try to build awareness and try them to open up with your opinions. But if that person isn't going to change, they're not going to change. And you shouldn't hit your head a bit against a brick wall and keep trying to change that person.
But then it's a case of actually then you need to just change yourself and be like, well, I don't need to be in this situation. I do agree with that. If it's
Yeah.
having a negative impact on you, I agree that you should do what you need to do. However, I think on the flip side, we are becoming a society where we're becoming very singular. And it unfortunately is the Western part of us, where it's like, well, actually, I can do this. I'm financially independent now.
I
I
think
can
the
do
finance
this by
pinnacle.
myself.
I think that's the pinnacle. Once people, I'm not money maybe is, but then is it wrong or is it right that women are becoming financially stable by themselves, which I think is an amazing thing. I can't say it's a bad thing because I'm doing it myself. But then it's breaking communities apart as well. So is that good or is that bad? Or should we keep women back in the homes again?
So I was listening to a book about marriage. This was a while ago, so I don't remember all of it, right? But the whole thing was, I think when a certain work act, the law changed in regards to who could work, and women then became more independent, financially independent. They didn't have to, because before people, families would marry families they knew because they were, of the same sort of status, and that's how it worked here in England. We're talking about. And then once the Work Act, I can't remember which Work Act it came out, and women could then work. Actually, women and men could marry whoever they wanted. It wasn't about the status of the family anymore. So regardless of the fact of where you said, "Oh, I know we could keep talking about finance," no, it's had a massive impact on society, not only the Eastern side or the British Asians here in the UK from years ago. When people became financially independent, that's when they could choose who they wanted to marry at that point. It wasn't a family decision anymore. And that's where I think we are. We're years behind because I think we're sort of reliving what the UK society already went through, because not we know that within the UK society, the English white society years ago, they'd marry people from certain statuses. And we're sort of years behind that, maybe a few decades behind, but we're still working on the same cycle in regards to relationships. But I feel like we're going too much the other way, where it's a case of we only really care about ourselves now. It's not about other people. And I think that is a real shame. I do think, and that whole thing of what will people say, I feel like it does give both, like even when we've explored podcasts previously, people that have gone through a hard time are like, well, actually, it was my family, which I'm saying is community, that supported me and got me through it. And you see it all the time. Yeah, we're worried initially about what the community will say, and actually you make that choice of whether you want to listen to that community or not, or your family. But when the shit hits the fan, it's that same community that will hold you up as well, I found.
So flipping it on the other side is we always say these people that gossip. So who are these people that are gossiping? It's usually we say the older women in the community, and we're working with quite a lot of senior citizens at the moment. And to be honest, I've had a lot of fun working with and I find it surprising that I'm saying this. I never thought I would ever say this, but they've been so welcoming. And is is it bad that they're talking about it is. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna regret saying this, but they haven't got much else to do rather than sit there and talk. What else can you do is but talk about people. If you've got nothing else in your life, you're just gonna talk about people. You don't go out anywhere. You might just come and meet one group, for example, and that's all you're gonna do, talk about people. You can't talk about adventures that you've had because you might go an odd couple of months to India. That's it. But then you're going to talk about the people that you met in India and maybe gossip about them. So is it a bad thing what the community are saying and gossiping about? because it's building the older generation's community, because then they've got something to connect about.
I do agree with the connection, but then maybe that's where it's a case of they need other things to do, like other hobbies, right?
I think that might be it.
So well, that's an interesting one, because if it's, what else do they have to do? I think they're past that point of learning. Well, no, I don't agree. Certain people will learn new skills, and I've met loads of people that have been like, I'm doing this now, and I'm like, that's pretty good considering.
I think in our community, we won't go too far into this because then it's another episode. But in our community, at a certain age, the older generation think, that's it, I'm done. I've got nothing else to do. I'm going to depend on my family to do all the shopping, do this, do that. I've got nothing else to learn. But like you said, if we introduce things to them as the younger generation, for example, we do exercise classes in a few different groups in the community. And it's been hard to bring those exercise classes into those groups because quite a lot of the senior citizens didn't want to do exercise, like chair exercises. But it's been so amazing to see the growth in the group, as in, first they were doing chair exercise and now they're getting up on their chair, actually leaning on the chair for support now. And then some of them are actually letting go of the chair. The whole thing I'm saying is, maybe it's because they think, okay, nothing new can be done. I just want to sit here and do nothing. But if we open their eyes to new things apart from talk about people, but maybe if we play our part in our community and actually go and support those people that are gossiping, because there must be a reason. You only have time to gossip about people if you've got time to do it.
It's an interesting point, but then it comes
And
back.
maybe that will help us build our community.
But then that is an interesting point, isn't it? It's bringing it back to, actually, we do need to care about our community so that you don't get it. So we've sort of taken it the other way, then giving them something to do rather than gossip. So then we don't have to worry about what people will say, potentially. There's a solution. There is a solution. Okay, let's wrap that one up, because what will people say is something that continues to be a comment, thought, a very important thought in our minds, regardless of whatever the topic is. So it will come up again, but it's been an interesting one. I think we've actually come up with a solution. Help those people that are talking about you do something else and divert their attention. Keeps you away from dementia, keeps you away from physical problems because you're exercising or doing something, using yourself mentally. But also, it's not even the older generation. It's also, people that perhaps are not busy enough. So they talk about, it's an interesting one. I think you're onto something. People need hobbies. I think we've had a solution there. This set of podcasts about solutions, not the problems. So anyway, that's the end of this episode. And it's been an interesting one. We're starting to, I think, get a bit more comfortable because it was a bit rusty at the start, right, Taj?
Yeah, it was. I felt a bit like, oh my God, what should I say next?
Okay. So that's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.